The night I learned the truth about my life. It wasn't cinematic. No storm, no dramatic thunder, no sudden blackout that forced me to find the flashlight in the junk drawer and discover the hidden note under the batteries. It was ordinary, dangerous ordinary. The kind of evening that hums and won't be quiet. My name is Rowan. I'm 37. I thought I knew what married meant. I thought it meant waking up to the same laugh in 1,000 variations, memorizing someone's coffee ritual like a love poem, knowing which songs will make them look out of the window and which songs will make them dance while brushing their teeth. I thought it meant home. I was married to Amy for 8 years. On paper, we were good. Not magazine cover perfect, just good. Friends who turned into lovers who built a life that looked like a well-made bed. We lived in a townhouse near the river with white curtains that made noon seem kind, and a dining table we swore we'd use more than we actually did. We set alarms for sunrises we rarely watched. We made lists. 2 Fridays ago was supposed to be a guy's retreat into the woods. A bonfire, stories, mild bravado measured in cheap beer, and arguments about whether ghosts are just grief with costumes. It fell apart naturally because someone's kid spiked a fever and someone's car decided it was done being a car. Plans dissolve. Adults improvise. I bought chips and drove home early, a peace offering to a week that had been chewing me up like old gum. I pulled into our street at 8:47 p.m. The neighborhood had that lamplight glow that makes everyone's windows look like lanterns held up to a dark idea. 3 cars I didn't recognize were parked near our place. Not unusual. Amy had mentioned a girls' night, marketing friends, scented lotions, gossip like a renewable resource. It made sense. The door was locked, but the back gate gave like it wanted to be pressed. Voices rose from the patio. Laughter loud, unafraid, the kind that thinks it will never have to apologize. I should have called out. I should have walked right in and held up the chips like a neon sign that said, "Husband." Instead, I heard my name turn a corner and I froze. There's a frequency the body recognizes as threat before the mind catches up. Mine tuned in like it had been waiting. "He's so good," Amy said. "That's the problem." Clink, sip laughter. Rowan thinks love is a spreadsheet he can balance if he just colors the cells correctly. The women laughed harder, the way people do when they hear something almost true, and that makes it meaner. Another voice, Mackenzie, her work friend who always posted sunrises as if she was the only one who could see them. "I still can't believe you've been juggling this long," she said, and she sounded impressed, which made me want to tear something gentle in half. Amy breathed in sharply, theatrically. "Jonah is like," she searched for a word like she was plucking the right fruit from a display. "He's like the part of me that didn't grow up. He makes the room tilt. Last Tuesday. We didn't make it past the hallway. Rowan texted to ask if I wanted pho. He was 5 minutes away and I was pressed up against a wall like I was 19. A ripple of sound, someone whistled, someone hissed, the world tiny. The patio light buzzed as if it wanted to leave too. I remember thinking I bought chips, salt and vinegar. Amy hates them. She says they taste like punishment. I bought the wrong thing. I always thought I was good at buying the right thing. These thoughts arrive out of order. The mind is a drunk archivist. Does he suspect? A softer voice, June, who always sounded like she was apologizing for existing and then didn't change a thing. Amy laughed quietly. He suspects I'm tired. He suspects I need space. He suspects marriage is a t-shirt that shrank in the wash. But no, not this. He believes me. He always believes me. I could hear ice in glasses. The wet thunk of a bottle placed on the table. The night smelled like grapefruit peel. And a candle Amy bought because the label said amber and storm. "I saw him yesterday," Mackenzie said, conspiratorial. "The one, Jonah. He's intense." "Intense is just a softer word for selfish," June murmured. Amy didn't answer for a heartbeat. "Maybe," she said, "but I feel visible." She exhaled like the reason was oxygen itself. "With Rowan, I feel safe. With Jonah, I feel," she paused like a cliff, "awake." There are moments in life when a knife chooses you. It slides between ribs made of assumptions and sits there, patient, certain. I backed away from the gate, and walked like a burglar out of my own life. I didn't make it to the car before my hands found my knees and my breath forgot how to be breath and turned into a bad impression of itself. I texted my best friend Devin. "Are you home?" he called. I didn't say hello. I said, "I think I just heard my life from the outside." He told me not to go back. "You don't need to be a firework," he said. "You need to be a witness. There's a difference." I slept on his couch, or, more accurately, lay on his couch like a mannequin whose eyelids didn't glue shut. He handed me a yellow legal pad and a pen and said, "Write it down now, before your brain starts editing." I wrote, voice, laughter, Jonah, hallway, awake, believes, visible, safe. The words looked like a ransom note. At 2:31 a.m. Amy texted, "Girls staying over, don't wait up. Love you." The words are loyal to whatever mouth says them. The phone screen lit my face in a color that felt like being underwater and knowing, for the first time, that water has weight. In the morning, I stood in our kitchen, poured coffee like I was in a commercial for a product no one actually needed, and listened to Amy talk about strategy decks and clients who don't get it. She kissed my shoulder the way she had 1,000 times, and it felt like a rehearsal for a play I didn't audition for. That was the moment I made a decision that wasn't about anger. I decided not to ignite. Explosions are loud and brief and leave everyone deaf. I decided to learn the architecture of the house I had been living in blind. I decided to take notes. I decided to let the light be ugly. Quiet wars are not cinematic. They're not violin scores in slow motion. Quiet wars look like email filters and name your folders inconspicuous hacks, and learning the exact way your own voice sounds when you are pretending to be bored instead of broken. Quiet wars are about admin. I started with paper. The bank thinks it's keeping track of your spending. Really, it's narrating your life. I printed statements and circled purchases like a teacher grading an essay titled "This is Fine." Restaurants I'd never heard of. Rideshares that ended 3 blocks from our house on nights I was late at work. A boutique hotel charging us for day use, which sounds like a euphemism even when it's not. I created a folder called Tax, and another called Garden, and slid screenshots into both like secrets prefer mundane names. I took photos of receipts, exported phone logs, mirrored the calendar onto an account Amy didn't know I had, watched as Strategy Night appeared on Thursdays with the consistency of Tide. I met an attorney named Van in a narrow office with a plant that wanted to be a tree and a window that wanted to be a view. He listened with his whole face. He did not interrupt. When I was done, he tapped the pen against his legal pad and said, "We will not improvise. We will not get righteous. Righteous people lose money. Calm people win outcomes." I believed him because calm felt like a foreign country I wanted to be a citizen of. He gave me a list: document, secure, separate, in that order. Document was what I was already doing. Secure looked like put what is yours under lock and law, not emotion. Separate meant a new account in my name that could feed me if the house stopped being a house. I moved what the law said was mine and moved it gently, like I was carrying a sleeping animal across a turbulent street. Amy's world didn't notice. I froze one joint card under the pretense of fraud. She texted me a photo of a declined checkout screen with "lol help." And I replied with, "Bank flagged something, they're reissuing, use your personal." She sent a kiss emoji. I learned that emojis can look like bandages. Finding Jonah wasn't work. He wanted to be found. He was the kind of man the internet applauds, talks about mindful mornings and intentional living, and posts videos of himself making pour-over coffee like he's teaching a delicate surgery. He ran brand workshops with names that sounded like cult half-siblings. The self-audit, reclaiming your narrative, the architecture of desire. I laughed in a bathroom stall and scared an old man washing his hands. I made a timeline. I didn't want to. Want isn't the point. Truth is the point. Thursday nights. 2 months of Tuesdays when she was tutoring a cousin who didn't exist. The weekend in June when she said she was at a cabin with the team, and I found a photo of Jonah's ring reflection in the black of her sunglasses. Details are cruel. They're also merciful. They hold you up when feeling would drown you. I didn't tell many people. Devin knew. My sister Nina, who has a laugh that feels like a trampoline, learned at a diner over pancakes that no longer tasted like pancakes. She put her hand over mine and said, "Promise me you won't try to be noble." I promised because I like breaking the right promises less than I like breaking the wrong ones. I built the file. Not to post online, not to live stream vindication, but to make reality heavier than denial. Screenshots, 3 emails, a bank ledger annotated like a poem, a small audio clip, legal in our state, where Amy said to Jonah, "He thinks he understands me because he remembers the first time I cried in front of him." Then a sigh so intimate I had to leave the room I was sitting in. I found Jonah's partner, Eliza, through a chain of mutual follows and a public nurse registry. I drafted a letter. "You don't know me," it began, not because it sounded poetic, but because it was true. "I'm sorry for the harm this will cause. I believe harm has already been done to you without your consent. You deserve the information required to make your own decisions." I kept the tone clean, like a hospital corridor. I timed the reveal to the day Amy was delivering a keynote she had been building for 3 months, the one that put her name on a big screen, and gave her a lanyard with a QR code like entry into a better version of herself. At 9:58 a.m., I paid a courier to deliver the file to Eliza. At 12:11 p.m., my phone lit up with a message from Amy, "Call me." Then please. Then nothing for 12 minutes. Then everything. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. The point wasn't triumph. The point was truth backed by proof. At 1:03 p.m., Eliza called. Her voice had the steadiness of someone who knows how to speak in emergencies. "Thank you," she said, and her breath caught on the second word. "I thought I was paranoid. I worked 12-hour shifts and she stopped, corrected. He made me feel dramatic. We spoke for 10 minutes about nothing that would be legible on paper. We spoke about the uncanny valley of certain smiles, about the way you can hear a lie and still feel guilty for disbelieving. When we hung up, I sat in a coffee shop and watched 2 teenagers share one muffin and thought, someday, I will value small mercies again. At 2:25 p.m., Amy arrived home early. Her makeup had surrendered. She shut the door softly like the door had done nothing wrong. "You told her," she said. It wasn't a question. She stood in the kitchen like a defendant who knows the evidence is in the room somewhere and hopes she can't see it. "I told the truth to someone who deserved it," I said. Calm feels like lying at first. She cycled through it, anger spun sugar, apology as choreography, seduction that tasted like salt. "We can fix this," she said. "We can figure out what we want." I handed her the papers Van had prepared. The look in her eyes was the look of someone who realizes gravity applies to her, too. She scanned the living room and saw the ghosts, my late father's camera missing from the shelf, the leather-bound journal gone from the nightstand, the drawer with my spare keys empty in a way only people who have routinely opened it would notice. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I stopped performing okay," I said. "I started acting like a person who believes himself." We did not become enemies. Enemies imply a clean plotline. We became 2 people who had participated in a magic trick and finally wanted to know where the dove went. The next weeks were a choreography of logistics and small hurts. Amy alternated between declarations and the quiet resignation of someone learning a new language in public. She tried the classics. "It was a mistake," I replied. "It was a habit," she said. "I was lonely," and I wanted to say, "So was I," but it sounded petty even in my head, and petty is a flavor that stays on the tongue too long. Van set the pace. Steady, humane, anesthetic where possible. He guided us into mediation like an usher with a flashlight. The mediator, Ruth, wore sensible shoes and a neutral expression like a shield. When Amy said, 8 great years and 1 bad decision shouldn't erase everything," Ruth tilted her head. "A decision repeated is a value," she said. I watched language tighten around facts like a knot. We divided things like we were ending a failed project. Assets, accounts, objects heavy with sentimental residue. Amy kept the green velvet chair that had never been comfortable but looked gorgeous in photos. I kept the camera and the dining table I had built with my uncle one summer. We thought we were both good at carpentry. She kept the art prints. I kept the silence between them. Our friends sorted themselves into categories that didn't feel neat but were accurate. Team No Drama drifted toward absence. Team Rowan sent texts that said, "Whatever you need," and meant, "Please don't make me participate." Team Amy posted quotes about growth that could be read as either bravely confessional or vaguely threatening. Nina brought me soup. Devin brought me a toolbox and watched me mount shelves in my new place without offering advice that would have sounded like love disguised as control. I moved into a rental with thin walls that taught me new habits. The upstairs neighbor practiced cello at strange intervals. The couple on the left argued in whispers. Someone on the ground floor baked late and made the hallway smell like vanilla forgiveness. My first night alone, I stood in the middle of the living room and whispered my name to see if it sounded different when it wasn't reflected back by the person I had built my days around. It did. It sounded less like a password and more like a doorbell. Therapy began. My therapist, Sarah, had the kind of presence that makes time move differently. On my second session, she said, "You do not need to forgive to heal. You need to metabolize. Forgiveness is dessert. Metabolizing is protein." It was a strange metaphor, but it worked. I started eating better. I slept like someone learning it's okay to be unconscious. I walked. I let the river speak a language I didn't need to translate. Amy texted me a few times in those early weeks. Not manipulative, not theatrical, just human. "I told my mother," she wrote. She cried in a way I didn't know mothers cry. Later, "Eliza left him." And later, "I can't sleep in the bedroom. I sleep on the couch and it feels like a waiting room." I answered when it felt right and stayed silent when it didn't. We were not friends. We were not strangers. We were the only two people who had watched the same building fall in slow motion. When she wrote, "I'm sorry for making you hold my loneliness like it was your job," I cried for the first time in months and felt stupid for calling that an accomplishment. Sarah said it wasn't an accomplishment, it was an opening. "Openings are how air enters rooms," she said. Jonah sent me an email subject lined "man to man." I didn't open it for a week. When I did, it was a long confession and a short absolution for himself. "We are both victims of the same illusion," he wrote. "We fell in love with a reflection." I responded with one sentence. "You fell in love with a reflection. I fell in love with a person." I archived the thread and then deleted it. Eliza texted me once, months later, to say she had moved in with a friend for a while, then found a studio that faced south. "I bought a plant and it didn't die," she wrote. I sent back a photo of my plant still alive somehow. We didn't become allies. We became a quiet affirmation that two people could survive the same weather and not turn into it. I joined a pickup basketball group even though my jump shot was more aspirational than accurate. The gym smelled like adolescence and disinfectant. After a game, a guy named Tarek said, "You play like someone who has something to prove to himself and no one else." I laughed. "Is that good?" He shrugged. "It's honest." Amy's life changed shape. She lost a client and gained a therapist. Her Instagram went from color to grayscale and then to no posts at all. A mutual friend said she'd moved into a smaller place across town, an apartment with light that surprised her at odd hours. I didn't look. I learned the discipline of not looking. It's a muscle you can grow if you stop feeding it sneaky snacks. Consequence has a calendar, and on mine, the days began to feel less like obligations and more like invitations. I cooked real food. I bought a better pillow. I stopped reading the comments. I started reading novels again, the kind that make you forget your phone exists. I did my laundry on time. These are not triumphs. They are signs that life is a room and you're learning where the light switches live. 5 months is a strange measurement, long enough for a season to change its mind, short enough for grief to still think it owns the deed. But when I woke up on a Sunday and wanted pancakes just because, I realized the deed had my name on it again. Not as a victory, as a fact. I met someone on the margin between accident and intention. Her name is Lena. We met at a bookshop because of a misplaced copy of a poet who writes like she swallows stars. She laughed at a line I underlined, a real laugh that didn't audition to be anyone else's. Our first date was an afternoon walk. Our second was hardware store paint chips and a debate about whether eggshell is a color or a conspiracy. I told her the truth, not in cinematic bullet points, but in small, plain facts. She said, "Thank you for not giving me your trauma like a carrier pigeon." We went slow on purpose. When Amy and I saw each other again, it was an accident. A grocery store, the place where you go to prove you're still a functional mammal. We froze. She had cut her hair in a way that made her look more like herself somehow. We moved to the end of an aisle no one really uses, the place where forgotten seasonal items go to die. She said, "I wanted to hate you for telling Eliza, but I don't. I hate that you had to." I nodded. She said, "I'm leaving town for a while, a job out west." I nodded again. "I'm sorry," she said. No excuses, no stage directions, just the line. I said, "I know." We didn't hug, we didn't need to. I went home and stood at my window and watched the river do its one trick, move and look like it isn't. I took the small drive with the evidence, the one that had sat in a drawer like a loaded word, and walked it to the storage unit. I put it in a locked box behind tax paperwork and a sweater I cannot throw away. I didn't destroy it. I gave it distance. Healing is sometimes not torching, it's shelving. Lena came over that evening with sunflowers wrapped in brown paper. "For the table you built," she said, even though she hadn't known the table had a story until that second. We cooked together and burned the first batch of onions because we were laughing at the audacity of a life that offered seconds. We ate on the balcony. The neighbors argued about compost. A siren wailed and then gave up. Something inside me unclenched I didn't know I was holding. There's a version of this story where I say the best revenge is living well. It's simpler to write than it is to live. Living well is not revenge, it's repair. It's a discipline that asks for attention the way a plant asks for water, with quiet persistence and small punishments when you forget. I started watering. Sometimes a memory still ambushes me. A hallway. A word like awake used as a sword. I let it pass through. Sarah says, "A thought is a bus, you don't have to get on." I watch it open its doors and drive away without me. It's not a superpower, it's practice. I don't know where Amy lives now. I don't know if Jonah learned anything. I don't need to. My life no longer orbits their names. It orbits coffee in a cup that fits my hand. It orbits a sister who sends me ridiculous memes at 1 a.m. It orbits a friend who will help me move a couch without asking, "How did it come to this?" It orbits Lena asking, "Do you think birds ever get tired of the sky?" And me answering, "Maybe, but the sky doesn't get tired of them." I used to think trust was a bridge that, once collapsed, couldn't be rebuilt. That's true sometimes. Other times you learn the river beneath holds you better than the structure ever did. You wade. You swim. You float without apology. You climb out where the bank is muddy and you don't mind the stain. Here is what survived. My appetite, my loyalty to quiet mornings, my ability to bake a decent loaf of bread from a recipe my mother swears she invented, my ridiculous dance when a song surprises me. Here is what didn't. My need to be the hero, my belief that safety is the same thing as love, my willingness to ignore the way I shrink when I'm trying to make someone else tall. If there is a moral, and most stories insist on one, like a child at bedtime, it is simple and complicated. Tell the truth faster, not the whole truth. No one can hold that without breaking. Tell the true thing in front of you. If someone makes your house feel like a stage, step off. If a door closes softly, notice what room you're in and whether the window's open. And if you ever hear your name in a stranger's mouth, decide just once to be your own familiar.